Welcome to another episode of AutoSave. I'm Nick Andrade here with my co-host Camille Salazar-Hadaway, and on this episode of AutoSave, we're continuing our dive into the game Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Sephiroth. I think I'm going to start every episode with that.
I was singing in my head. That probably to me is one of the greatest video game songs of all time, right?
Yeah, it's super simple. You know the character's name off the bat. I mean, it does a good job introducing the character. It's catchy.
Yeah.
It's just a good time, that song.
Anything that has the opera singers in it gets me.
Yeah.
Like Duel of Fates and Star Wars. And then when they're always just like,
Yeah.
It just,
well, I think
so
what
good.
it is, it makes us feel, we're nerds. We're gamers.
Yes.
We love
We
geek
are?
culture. Gamers, what are those? But we're not classy. When we have a touch of opera in our genres that we love to consume, it makes us a little classy. So I sip my tea with my finger up, my pinky finger up, and I enjoy all the opera.
You got to do it with more conviction there.
Oh, more? Okay.
There we go. People can't see this, but
No one could
Camille
see
has
this.
her finger, or not middle finger, whoops, her pinky finger. She's not flipping me the bird, I promise.
I'm trying
Maybe.
to be classy, Nick, okay? It's the pinky finger.
But that song, it's gone through a bunch of renditions. The newest version has like a rock guitar, which I'm not as big as a fan of as the original. But maybe, again, that's me being a nerd.
Not as classy.
Yeah, not as classy. Pinky up.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not as classy. We got to be classy. Keep it classy, kids.
Last time on the first episode of Final Fantasy Remake, we met all types of familiar faces. Cloud joined Avalanche as a work for
Cloyd
hire
is a
helping.
classy character name. Sir Cloyd.
Oh God, I'm not sure if we're gonna take all this out, but my God, I'm starting off real strong. Cloud joined Avalanche as a merc for hire, helping Barrett, Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge destroy a Mako reactor. So you go through all that, you escape the explosion, you meet Aerith for the first time, and you encounter Sephiroth.
You're not real. You're dead.
I am.
I killed you with my own...
Oh, you need not remind me. It was the crowning moment of our time together. But that was then, and this is now. I have a favor to ask. Our beloved planet is dying. Slowly. Silently. Painfully. Can you bear to see the planet suffer? Cloud.
I still can't get over how creepy his voice is in this.
Yeah.
He's just it's so soft and maniacal. I don't know.
Yeah, I like the theatrics in his voice. Keeps up with the whole JRPG being larger than life,
It's strange too because most villains in JRPGs are like, "I will kill you," and he's just like, "Hello, Cloud." It's just really nice and soothing. But there's a lot of nostalgia in this one. I think we got to meet so many different characters in this. I think Aerith showed up a little bit earlier than in the original. And Sephiroth as well. So they're kind of just trying to like say, hey, look at us. We have all these characters that you know and love. So please play this game. But again, it left us with our heads scratching a little bit because is this game a remake or are they taking a lot of liberties in this?
They're just like, screw the original. Well, I think it's what we talked about last time is the fact that they're pulling on our nostalgia. So we know this is going to be, I think, Final Fantasy VII that we remember from our childhood, but just with a little bit of difference. They're just scaring me a bit because the difference is coming off real early in big ways. That seems like it's going to change the story.
I think we'll get more in depth with this as the show goes on. But initial thoughts is, for me, if they do change a bunch of it, I'm all for it. Because again, this game came out a long time ago. And if you have ideas on how to make it better, then go for it. If it doesn't make it better though, it might miss the mark.
Yes.
So that's the risk you're taking. But I'm always okay with kind of trying to try something new.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it all comes to if as fans we're not satisfied by this story, especially because it's, the first part of this remake, right? So if we're not satisfied because it's going to be left off on a cliffhanger, they're going to keep us coming back for more. So if it's left off where we're like, what the heck did they just mess up? Well, then, at the end of the day, when you're doing, I feel like any type of remake, you kind of have to keep the fans, the community at the heart of it, because without the community, there would be no remake. No one would want to play it.
It's so hard to please the community, though.
Yeah.
They always have some sort of gripe if there is a remake. But, we'll have to see as we play more. This week, we are diving into chapters 3 and 4, and our main theme is Mercenary for Hire. Now, it's another trope we see a lot in media where a main character is doing things for money and maybe seems a little emotionless and is a bad boy / girl who helps the good guys, but really wants to do it for money, but then maybe starts to soften up a little bit. Camille, where have we seen some of these before?
Okay, well, the first one that came to my mind, and you wrote it down too, Wolverine.
Yes.
And I'm thinking more of, well, actually, yeah, the 90s animated show Wolverine was very much like this. He was just doing, his deeds just because he kind of liked Jean Grey. Really, let's be real. That's what was going on there, okay? But also the Hugh Jackman Wolverine, when he was helping Rogue, he just kind of like fell into that and didn't really want to help her out.
That movie seems like such a long time ago.
I know.
It's 1999 when it came out.
It was 1999.
Yeah, it was 1999, yeah.
Jeez, it is so far ago.
Wolverine is like, first, he's a short king, so just repping the short kings out there. But he's the kind of guy who he's always going to do something. Obviously, he gets better over time, but at the start, at least, he's doing it for himself. And then I roll into, of course, I think the main person you think of with all of this is Han Solo, right?
Yes.
He's
definitely
the scoundrel who starts off, doesn't want or wants to do things for money, and then slowly gets involved with Luke and Leia, but then still leaves for money, and then wahoo, comes in and saves the day, cowboy.
Yeah, I know. Han Solo is like, at first you're like, oh man, this guy, well, I mean, handsome, obviously. But then you kind of want to punch him in the face because he doesn't want to, stand for the right cause. He's just kind of in between. Another character or characters that come to my mind, and this one's really abstract, Timon and Pumbaa. Okay, think about it.
Yeah.
When they found Simba, it was just for their greater good, right? They didn't care about Pride Rock. They just needed protection from everything else.
Oh, bravo for that one. That you pulled that one out of the hat. That's pretty good. Because you know what? Even then, like, it was a long while before they got on board with what Simba was trying to do too. Timon was like trying to run away.
Exactly.
But then it was Pumbaa who was like more brave, and then they slowly started to soften up. But that's wow.
Yeah.
I'm amazed by that one.
And they are great heroes, because if it wasn't for that dance, the hyenas would have saw Simba coming. I'm just saying. I'm putting that out there as well. Any other characters?
Yes. Catwoman is one that obviously there's different renditions of her throughout Batman and the comic books and the movies or whatever. But there's a lot of times where she helps out Batman for a good cause, but then goes back to doing her own thing. But she, is there sometimes and does the good deeds once in a while. So I thought she had a good shout. And then back to the Disney one, Aladdin. If you remember, he just wanted to do this for him.
Yeah.
But then he fell in love, and then he wanted to do it for the greater good.
Oh, we were missing a really big one. Vegeta, Dragon Ball. He was the biggest jerk of all time. He just wanted to help Kakarot so he could then fight Kakarot. And then he's become the best father in all of Dragon Ball Z. Isn't that crazy?
The amount of times you brought up Vegeta and being a great father. I know, like, I'm thinking too, like you mentioned Wolverine in the 90s cartoon. Did you have a crush on him too?
I did. That Wolverine meme where he's holding the picture?
Yeah.
That was me. I was just holding a picture of Wolverine. I was like, I love you. Yeah.
I think one day we have to go through like all the video game / cartoon characters that you had a crush on growing up. I don't have many, but you might see one coming up in this episode.
Ooh, okay. All right. I think I know who.
Yeah. After the break, we dive into Chapter 3 of Final Fantasy VII on AutoSave.
You're home.
That's right, Angel.
Welcome
back. Have you been a good girl?
Yeah, I've been helping Tifa.
Oh, you did you? Well, well.
You made it. Where'd you get that? I can't remember the last time I saw a real one. Huh? How sweet. When did you get so thoughtful?
Guy can change. Has been 5 years.
Huh?
I need to talk to Barrett.
Right. Come on in.
Has it been 5 years, Cloud?
Was that the crush?
Yes.
I knew it. Tifa.
That was the crush. I am a simp for Tifa, 100%.
I think we all are.
It's true. I was never an Aerith guy. I was never well, Jesse in this game, nice, but
Nice, Jesse. Nice.
I don't want to start sounding creepy here, but Tifa, yes, definitely my video game crush, 100%.
Yeah, she's just gorgeous, and she looks amazing in this game. Also, Jesse, yes.
Say okay, all right,
Yes.
okay, but there's a little flirting going on here, but I'm starting to notice, like, does Cloud just flirt with everyone? He's so hard to read because he's always so moody. He's like, yeah, I can change. It's been 5 years.
Oh, so you think Cloud's doing a little flirting? This is all Tifa in my head.
Okay.
And it irritated me that Cloud wasn't acknowledging or reciprocating, like,
Right.
the love back.
Right.
I know, like, he's not entitled to just because it's Tifa and they're childhood friends, but I mean, that would have been sweet too. Show her that you appreciate the flirt.
It's just, again, Cloud is this bad boy. He's so mysterious, right? He just gets all these people riled up because you can't really read him. You don't get his vibe.
Yeah.
But Barrett is reunited with his daughter, Marlene, who is super cute. I love Marlene scenes in this game. And they all reconvene in the bar Seventh Heaven. So I want to ask you also, do you remember the show Seventh Heaven? Or as I call it, Seventh Heaven. Yeah, there we go.
I never watched that show, but I knew the theme just because kids, believe it or not, we would have to watch shows we didn't want to watch while waiting for the shows we wanted to watch.
That's very true.
Because there wasn't a YouTube where we could decide what to watch. It was just like, oh, I'm going to sit through this Seventh Heaven marathon all of Saturday just to, watch some Buffy.
Just to watch. Fun fact, though, David Gallagher from Seventh Heaven is the voice of Riku from Kingdom Hearts.
Yes,
So the little
I did know
tie-in to
that.
the Square Enix franchises there. Yes.
I love that.
Before all this happened, by the way, we mentioned Tifa off the hop, but Cloud just keeps getting these weird visions. These sand dementors, as I keep calling them. We'll get to what their name is later in the show, but I'm still calling them sand dementors. I know that Camille, she's not even a big Harry Potter fan, so
No.
throwing out these references, she's going to get sick of it once in a while. But are these things going to be in this game? Like, do you see them being in this game a lot? Because we keep seeing them time after time.
They're in it too much at this point. I'm a little annoyed with these sand dementors. I'm not going to lie, just because it's like, okay, we get it. Cloud is having visions. Yes, we get it. These things are also watching him. But sometimes when these scenes come up, like, they're just there. Like, why? It's already been established that something is lurking.
It's happened already way too much. I think like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
So it's like, we get it. Like, you're drilling it into us that there's something mysterious going on with Cloud, but I don't think there needs to be this many like flashbacks or callbacks, because we're not even learning anything in these flashbacks. It's literally just him going, and then like seeing random like objects. Like, okay, we get it. We get it, Square Enix. Let's move on. As we get through, Cloud is not really great with the children. Scares Marlene, okay. But you get to search around a little bit, and you get to play some darts, which I started this game off having fun. I spent maybe an hour playing darts before I even got playing into this game just to beat the high score.
You are not alone. Because I can't even remember who's the highest score, but I think Tifa's up there.
Wedge. Wedge.
A Wedge is the highest. Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So I spent a good amount of time, maybe not an hour, but maybe like half hour playing darts, because at first too I didn't understand the mechanics because there was a lot to read, and I pulled a Nick and just skipped over that.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
read the instructions on how to play darts. So I kind of threw away a few games there, but then it's very addictive. Like, it makes you feel like you're out with your friends just at a bar, and you pick up some darts and you get addicted to just doing this task nonstop.
I was like, maybe I'll just play this for the rest of the time, because I became a pro at darts in this game. It's pretty straightforward. You obviously got to press X to throw the dart, and then there's a ring that grows and shrinks, and as you get it closer to the smaller version of it, then that's when you press triangle and you throw the dart. And I became a pro pretty quickly. So I'm like, you know what? I may not be really great at games in general, but I'm damn good at video game darts. All right.
I'm really proud of you. And you were rewarded with that, right? Because you do get something.
Oh, yes, you do. You get the luck up materia.
Yes.
Do you equip it a lot?
I used it here and there.
It isn't really that useful for me, but it's just a nice treasure to have because you knew that you got the high score, right?
Yeah, it's like a little trophy for me.
Tifa then tells you that you found a place for you to stay while you're here. So once you get there, Cloud is being a scoundrel, asking for money, but Tifa explains to him that they need more from him in order to pay him. So actually, we get a little nice guy moment here because he says, you know what? I'll help you, but the original agreement is fine. So look at this guy right there. As you cozy up for a night of nice sleeping, because you probably need that, there's a weird noise coming from your neighbor, and you go to investigate.
Hey, you okay in there? Oh. Coming in. Get back inside! Get off me!
What are you doing to Marco? This is his apartment. He's got a few problems, but he's not a bad guy. The landlady asked me to check on him now and then to make sure he's okay. Can I ask you to do the same?
Sure.
Poor Marco.
Yeah.
Cloud gets another glitchy memory. Sephiroth is there again, standing in front of you for maybe the 7th time already. But as you're about to strike, Tifa tells you to stop and finds out it's just some creepy guy in a cloak. But there's a weird little flashback there where these cloaked figures are saying, reunion, reunion.
Yeah.
And Marco has this 49 tattoo on his arm. He seems really sick. I have a guesstimate of what it is. Camille, did you have an idea of who this guy is, if he's anything?
I feel like Square is just feeding us exactly what it is. Like, this just is so set up.
Yeah.
To kind of give away that obviously he's linked with Sephiroth, maybe these sand dementors because he has a cloak. Like, there's too much of a link happening here.
There is, yeah. But I remember in the original game, there were cloaked figures that were Sephiroth's clones. He has a number on tattooed on him. I'm going to guess that he is a clone.
Yes.
But maybe we'll know, maybe we won't. But it's time to do the fetch quests, and it's time to do just a bunch of everyday things to help out your friends. So you're going to collect money from some vendors in order to pay you. When you go around, make sure to grab the #1 song, Prelude. There's actually a system in this game where if you go to a jukebox, you can actually purchase a song.
Yes.
There's a bunch of about 30 songs to collect throughout the game. So always make sure to buy them as you go, right? Or else you might miss them.
Exactly. And I think the best one, obviously, is the Chocobo song.
Yes, I love Chocobos, and the Chocobo song always makes me happy. I'm not really sure about this rendition.
Yes.
But
yes,
it's still
that's
pretty
true.
good.
I actually preferred the Final Fantasy 15 version of the Chocobo song.
Okay, we're gonna have to get in this one day, our like list of Chocobo songs.
Yes, let's add that to our to-do.
The Final Fantasy 15 one is better, I think. I just love Chocobos. I want to ride a Chocobo. I wish Chocobos were real, by the way.
I mean, it'd be do we really wish that they were real? There'd be big craps everywhere. There would be. What do you think? Like, come on,
Listen.
let's be real. Chocobos are birds. Birds crap everywhere. The chocobos are big birds. That's going to be a big crap.
If we had them over cars, we'd be saving the planet, okay?
That
We'd
is,
be riding
that
our
is
Chocobos.
true. That is true. We'll also be covered in crap.
Then we get into something called the Neighborhood Watch.
Huh. Didn't know you were holding down the fort.
Huh? Oh, hey, Cloud. Looking to join the neighborhood watch?
That depends. What does this neighborhood watch do?
Lots of stuff, really. But our top priority is taking care of any beasts that wander into town. That, and teaching the locals how to defend themselves.
Like they say, the only one who will look out for you is you.
Cloud's a great fighter, but only we know that. If no one knows him, no one will hire him. Thought if he joined the watch, he could get his name out there.
That would work for everybody.
Truth be told, we could really use your help. We can't pay you in gil, but we'll work something out. For example... Aha! What about your sword? I could mod it for you.
No thanks. It's fine just the way it is.
What, you some kind of purist? I know I'd never pass up a chance to improve my gear. Come on, at least let me show you how it's done.
Wedge and Biggs help you learn how to put materia on your weapons, which is simple enough. We've done this before. I guess because we already had knowledge of it, we had already equipped our stuff onto our weapons, so there didn't really need to be any explaining. Camille already put a bunch of fire materia onto her weapons, and the whole point of this neighborhood watch is to get rid of monsters and in turn raise your kind of name within the slums so that people can hire you more as a merc and you can make more money as you go.
And you do need that too, because people treat Cloud like a jerk in the slums.
Yeah, they hate him.
Like, even when you're going to see Wedge and Biggs, you know, the shop owner that's downstairs, he has like the armory, all the weapons.
Yeah.
You go to talk to him and he is throwing some words at Cloud, like the rudest guy in all of slums, that guy. So yeah, you need to kind of make yourself known, make sure that the community, the neighborhood could trust you. So hopefully they warm up.
If you walk around to the slums when you first are there, the people are whispering like bad things about you.
Yeah.
Like they hate you, which is, they don't even know him. I don't know. They're always like, who's this guy? Get out of my town.
That is true. But knowing Cloud, you know, he's pouting, he's moping. So it's not a good first impression.
Tifa joins our party at this point. So I wanted to ask you your early thoughts on Tifa, her fighting skills, what you think of using her. Are you a fan of using her?
I love using Tifa. I think also this depends on how people handle their parties in games like this.
Yeah.
Are you the type of player that tries to level everybody up so they're kind of on even playing ground, or you usually play with the one? I usually try to make sure everyone's on even playing ground. So I'll make sure to do rotations. Like, so if I know I played mostly as Cloud for the last flight, I'll play mostly as Tifa. And I enjoy Tifa just because it's more close quarters combat. And yeah, I have a good time with her.
Especially as I kept playing with Tifa, I started to notice, I think my setup, I enjoyed using Barret more as a second melee option, because with Tifa, her strength moves or her overdrive moves are kind of difficult.
Yes.
Especially if you're not, if the monster or whoever you're facing is moving a lot. You have to be right in close quarters with them in order to trigger those. So I felt a lot of the times I was missing those moves. So I normally would use Barret as much as possible because he was such long range that you can just attack from anywhere, where Tifa was a little bit harder. So her damage is insane. Like she's a strong person to have in your party, but I felt it was a little difficult kind of maneuvering her.
Well, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, she is difficult because, especially if you have enemies that are flying, like those drones, or it's pretty much, you can't play as Tifa. You have to actually play maybe as Barret or even Cloud to get those enemies to be knocked down or staggered, and then you could finish them off with Tifa. So like that's kind of the tactic that I would take as well. But yeah, I mean, Chakra, when you mention anything with Chakra, I'm a whole Naruto fan. I'm going to play as that character too. So Tifa has my vote all the time.
So once you get her in your party, you also get to start upgrading your weapons. And once you walk outside the armory, you meet Chadley, where he's this kind of like, I don't know if he's a robot. He's not a robot, but he's got this weird eyepiece on his eye. He's like a kid.
Yeah.
And he gives you the assess materia.
And a parrot. He has a parrot, right?
Oh, yeah, he does. What is...
I don't know why he has a parrot.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. But this is basically a side quest. There's a lot of side quests here. But basically in this one, he needs you to assess some monsters. So you go and you have to find these 2 specific monsters. And when you do that, he gives you an auto cure materia, which is very useful throughout this game.
It was. I feel like at this point as well, you were getting, through all these side quests, you're getting access to materia or money to buy different materia.
Yeah.
So for me, it was my struggle was having the proper amount of slots for these weapons to try to figure out what I wanted, because, I'm a huge fan of magic. So I want my magic materia on my weapons. But then I also do want auto cure because that makes sense as well. So I actually chose, I'm such a nerd. I chose not to use auto cure right away just because I found the battles were easy to handle at this point.
I usually equip auto cure with one of my secondary characters. So I can at least like have cure on Cloud myself, use those, and then hopefully my secondary character uses auto cure by themselves.
Okay.
So once you get through these side missions, you're building your rep. These people start to talk about you in a better light now. You have to do a bunch more fetch quests. The NPCs in this game I want to ask you about, they seem a little stiff.
Ah, really?
Yeah, you don't think so?
I don't think they seem stiff to me. I just think maybe they seem one-dimensional. Like they're only there for that one purpose. Like they really do feel like an NPC. But like everyone looks just really cool. Like even Chadley with his little sailor outfit and parrot on the side.
And his parrot.
I mean, cool. That's cool in another sense. But I don't think like, stiff. What do you mean stiff?
I guess in terms of, like you mentioned with one-dimensional, I feel like a lot of video games in general have this problem where they're just like, hello, Cloud, welcome. I need help here for you. Can you please help me? Okay. Like, I want some of these NPCs to come alive almost, where you feel like you're actually having a conversation and they're not just like a robot staring at you. That's what I felt like in terms of like stiffness, especially with the graphics in this game and how, most of these characters can really emote.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I actually find with Marlene, she doesn't give off that feeling, right? Like even in that little cutscene where you do meet her and she's welcoming Barrett home,
right?
You don't get that sense. There's also another side mission where, you're trying to find these cats or whatever, her friend's cats or something like that.
To you about.
Yeah, but like for that, when she's talking about it, she didn't seem one-dimensional, and I think it has to do with the fact that she has these ups and downs. Like she really does mimic a child in how she's voiced over and the dialogue that they gave her. Whereas maybe that's the problem. Like with Chadley, it just seems like Chadley's some other being because he just doesn't seem real in that sense. Like all these NPCs look amazing, right? With these graphics, but yeah, they're missing some, whether it's how their dialogue is written, it just doesn't seem natural.
And this is in full gameplay mode because anything that's in cutscene, I think is fine.
Yeah.
It's just when you're actually in the gameplay mode and then you're talking to some of these characters, there are different, like we'll meet some characters that do have a little life, but I feel like just the regular ones, it's almost like a throwaway. So they didn't put as much time in. Which it's a little detail, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. We don't have to get too much into it. But I did want to mention the kitty side quest. Was that one of your favorites?
No, those cats were so annoying. I couldn't, because there's a lot of cats in slums. Okay, a lot. Okay, so you're hearing meowing from all different directions. Very confusing when you're trying to do a mission to find cats, and they know what they're doing. Okay, Square Enix knows exactly what they're doing with this mission. So I had Cloud crawling under things, going into people's homes, trying to find the last cat was really hard for me. Very tedious, very annoying. I did not enjoy that.
I had to look it up because I just couldn't for the life of me find where these cats were. They were just meowing from every area. And this world, it's not that big, but I couldn't find them. So I had to look it up.
Yeah.
I found them eventually, but damn those cats. We meet up with Marley.
Yes.
Which is almost like Marlene, who is Tifa's grandma. And she talks to Cloud, asking him if he's leading Tifa on. So she knows, Camille, she knows, okay? Do you think so, though? Do you think that Cloud is?
Yes. Okay. Because we didn't talk about it when we were talking about the first cutscene when you get into the slums. But he gave Tifa the flower that Aerith gave him, who he was kind of flirting with. Okay, that's actually a scene where I was like, Cloud is kind of flirting here. He's kind of blushing here. He is leading on 2 women right now. Okay, you never give a woman a present from another woman. That is horrible. Cloud, horrible. So yes, he is leading Tifa on. And poor Tifa just thinks that, Cloud actually showing some emotion and got me a flower.
Well, I'll say this. She digs Cloud, right? I think that's known.
Yeah.
Especially in the first few scenes we've seen. Like, she is kind of blushing with him around. And
I feel like Marley is kind of the fan's perspective.
yes.
Because I don't know about you, but in the first one, did you, like in the original, in the first one, I'm talking like kids will be talking in 15 days or 15 years, sorry, where they're going to be like, oh, you played that Final Fantasy VII game, but they're talking about the remake and they're like, oh, apparently there was a first one. But yeah, in the original, did you kind of got that sense that Tifa, liked Cloud as well. So I feel like Marley is the fans' perspective of like that relationship, like just speaking for the fans. It's like, oh,
right.
Cloud is leading
And
on.
because I have a crush on Tifa, I was always rooting for them to get together. So I was always hoping and praying that they got together.
I think a lot of people were.
But there's always different teams because there's different women in this game, and they all, I guess, like Cloud. And it's for Cloud to decide, but who knows who he picks. But we do talk to Tifa again.
So, after you left the village, I let you off the hook before, back at the hall, but not this time.
Well, when we were kids, everybody wanted to be a soldier, right?
Yeah, I remember they were on the news every day during the war.
Thing is, by the time I finally made it in, they didn't need heroes anymore. It was nothing like what we dreamt of. It was just working for Shinra. Just...
I'm sorry. I know it's a touchy subject.
Not exactly small talk. Especially with someone you haven't seen in a while.
I get it.
I wanted to highlight this because I think this is the beginning. We're starting to see Cloud soften up. I know he does a lot of like, grunting, but it seems like he finally opened up and maybe he's not brooding as much.
Yes. Especially, I wasn't expecting him to open up this quickly just because it wasn't too long ago, like at the beginning when Cloud gets into the slums, that's when Tifa asked him, like, what happened? Like, you seem different when he starts settling into where he's staying. And then he kind of like puts it off and they go on all these mini missions, find some cats,
Yeah.
And I just wasn't expecting him to open up this quickly. I thought he would be more stubborn in opening up. But then that just tells me then that there is something a little bit more to his relationship with Tifa that he does cherish and treasure, even though if he doesn't necessarily know how to communicate that in the best way.
Once that's all over, you get to meet one of my favorite characters, Johnny, who is basically a buffoon. He's not a part of Avalanche, but he knows enough about them. So he gets in trouble. He gets arrested for possibly doing something. And Tifa asks you to help her get him back from Shinra. So you have to rescue him. Once you do, you scare him off and tell him not to do any of this anymore. Don't talk about anything with anybody, or else you'll come after him. And it's Cloud, so you don't want to mess with him, right?
Johnny looks like I can't even say the word, but Johnny just looks like a character. He looks like a mix-up of, Tommy Lee Jones, redhead version. Am I wrong? Like a redhead version.
He looks a little bit younger. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yes. But
Yeah.
I don't trust him. And that's the whole concern, right? Tifa needs Cloud's help because she's afraid that Johnny is going to talk. And because he's been providing things to Avalanche, right? To help them on their mission. So it's interesting when Cloud's kind of intimidating him, so he will not talk. Tifa's scared of how Cloud's going about that and doesn't necessarily want Cloud to take that approach to having Johnny silenced in a sense. So you could tell that the Cloud she knew as a kid has completely changed, right? Which is drawing more and kind of strengthening why she is concerned for what happened when he was gone.
That's a good point, because I can see throughout these cutscenes and dialogue scenes with Tifa, she seems a little standoffish with Cloud, because I think she feels like this guy doesn't seem like the same guy I once knew. He's clearly hardened. He's gone through some things, and he's not, I don't think he's completely honest with her, and she notices that. But Johnny is such a buffoon that I don't think anything that they say to him, he'll probably just find a way to ruin it, because he's such a dumbass in this game. He really is just like a comedic character for comedic effect. Once that's all over, you have to go and you meet Jessie, who has a job for you. But first, she gives you Ifrit summon. And yes, finally, I've been waiting for this. I love summons. In every Final Fantasy game, we finally get a summon for us, and it's Ifrit, obviously, because Ifrit is always the first summon that you get.
I just want to correct myself. I didn't mean Tommy Lee Jones. I just meant Tommy Lee. That makes more sense.
That's
okay?
so much different. Yeah,
and it makes more sense, right? So pretty much Johnny is just a collection of Pamela Anderson's exes, because like Kid Rock, Tommy Lee, it's in there. That's what I meant. When I said it too, I was like, wait, you're right. That doesn't make sense. Isn't Tommy Lee Jones the Jones that was MIB Jones, so I had to correct myself there. But yes, summons. I'm really excited for summons.
I was picturing like Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face in Batman because he has red hair. But I was confused because I'm like, this guy is a young guy, and like Tommy Lee Jones is just a wrinkled old man. I don't know where she's coming from this, but I'm glad you corrected yourself. But summons.
Let's clarify for the listeners. But yes, summons won't allow you to summon Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. But that's one of the major aspects of the franchise, right? Is how summons work, the different types of summons you could get. They get very elaborate, very cool. So when we get this one, you're just like, how cool is it going to be? Do you feel like this summon actually lived up to that first reveal of summons? Because
yes, I want to get more on this in the final segment. But for summons, the first time that you use it, I love just seeing Ifrit come out and just being able to use him. I want to talk more about that later, but I do really like it, but I don't at the same time. Yeah, but we'll get more into that. That's the end of chapter 3, and after the break, we're going to get into Chapter 4, Mad Dash.
Tough break. They changed the times. Last train's already left. Which is why we borrowed these bikes. Need a lift to the plate?
How did you guess?
Easy. You've been acting weird. Like talking about one thing when you're obviously thinking about something else.
Yeah, and don't get me started on all that pep.
All right, I'll give you that. But how did you know I wanted to head topside? Was I talking in my sleep? What else did I say?
No, we just figured you wanted to see your parents, that's all.
Nailed it, huh?
Yep, right on the head.
So, seeing as we don't have any family of our own, how about you let us be a part of yours for a bit? You know, spread the wealth.
Are your parents still around?
Huh? No.
Okay then. Guess you're all invited. Here's to awkward family reunions.
Yeah!
All right, here we go. We get to ride some motorcycles in Mad Dash. And it's a pretty long, I would say a long mission in terms of being on motorcycles. But Camille, what did you think of the whole motorcycle mechanics and attack movements throughout this?
I think it was perfectly timed in terms of the structure of how the story's going, because usually you'll see like something like this coming mid-game, but it comes earlier on. So I think that was a great way to pick up the pace, because in the slums, although, you know, there's a lot that you could explore, the pace does slow down from all the action in the first mission, right? So by the end of completing all the side missions, I wanted something that will kind of get my heart racing, and what better way to do that but with a motorcycle? And the mechanics were pretty cool. Like, they're pretty simple, easy to use. And, you know, the one thing that I didn't figure out to use was the brakes. Usually when levels are like this, where you're kind of driving through from this perspective, brakes are something that comes secondary to me. I don't think, because I just want to kind of speed through it, have the adrenaline rush, but it becomes very important.
It does.
Later on.
It does. And that's when we meet Roche, actually, who is, I guess, a villain. I'm not really sure who he is. I don't remember him in the original if he was, but he's a soldier on a bike with some smooth moves. He has a sword, and you basically got to do your best to avoid his attacks. This is where kind of the breaks come in. I like the mechanics here because in this kind of boss fight, he has different moves. He has a lightning AoE that you have to avoid. He throws lightning mines. He has sword attacks as well. So you have to maneuver. You have to brake, slow down, speed up in order to fight him properly. And again, normally like you, I like to just ride high and go as fast as you can and keep going. But I slowly started to realize that there was more to it in order to defeat him on his bike.
Yeah. And the good thing is, because it's new mechanics that you're picking up, but because it's more fast-paced gameplay, they leave the controls up on the screen for you until you get adjusted. So I found that very helpful. But yeah, it's very important to kind of know when to use those brakes, because he'll swipe at you, and he is pretty quick on his bike and very fast, and he'll come from different sides, and your attack, there's different buttons for each attack side. So you have to kind of get the hang of it before you could actually focus on taking him down.
Right. If he's on the right side, you have to use circle, and if he's on the left side, you have to use square, and also triangle is spinning splash. And that's a timed attack where you can only use it once in a while. But it's the most powerful thing you have, so you basically got to use it at any chance you get.
Yeah, it's kind of like overcharged.
Right. I was going to ask you does this motorcycle scene seem too long? Because I felt it dragged on a little bit. I think it was about 20 minutes of you on the motorcycle from start to finish. And I thought it started becoming a little monotonous for me.
Now that you mention it, I didn't think it was too long. But I think when you're going against Roche, you think you beat him, and then he just comes back.
Right, yeah.
Right? Maybe that. I think, yeah, when I got to that point, I'm like, he's still going? Like, how is this even possible? I pretty much feel like I dismantled his bike. How is he still going? And he's quite a character. He's very loud. He's very obnoxious. He's very theatrical. Yeah. So it does get annoying sometimes.
It does.
Especially when he does those, the pulses. He does a pulse attack.
He's like, ah!
Yeah, and then he slams down onto the road. So if you're anywhere nearby, then you're gonna take a damage. But yeah, that was pretty annoying.
He's someone that you would call extra, I think. But we finally get to our destination, which is Jesse's parents' house. So I'm going to be honest here, in this mission, I wasn't really sure what's going on at this time. Actually, throughout most of this chapter, there was this weird mission where you have to break in. So Wedge, Biggs, and Jesse goes to distract her mom, and she hasn't seen her parents in a while. And he has to break in and go into her dad's bedroom, and her dad is sick and on his deathbed.
Well, this whole mission in Sector 7, Sector 7 is interesting because we never see this in the original game, right? We never see Sector 7. So we get a kind of glimpse of what life is like for people working for Shinra, right? And through this whole mission, when Jesse kind of preps Cloud for this. As players, we don't know exactly what's happening at this point. Like we're not actually in on what the mission is, but you could tell obviously Cloud and Jesse had that conversation. So they're in. They know exactly, it's been discussed, but the gamers aren't, which is usually an unusual choice, I think, for game development, because usually as a gamer, you're put in the perspective of that character, so you know usually everything the character knows. So I thought that was an interesting choice. And then on top of that, Jesse's hiding this from her friends, right? So they don't know what's going on. They think they're just going to get pizza. And when I heard pizza, I was like, oh, that's cool. We're going to see Cloud eat, you know? No. She left Cloud outside to quote stand guard. But then, like you said, he goes to the back. He breaks into her family's home, and then you see her dad, and it just leaves for like that confusion of like what's happening. But it gives us a glimpse of what Shinra's actually doing to the people, which I thought was really cool.
I didn't put those two things together. So now I just thought he was, in a coma.
Did you explore the room? And like,
yes,
there's a couple things you could look at.
What's in there?
Well, obviously we'll get to what the purpose was getting into that room, right? But then there's like a note, I believe it was a note of like, him working for Shinra. So they already start establishing Jesse's dad's condition is linked to Shinra. So I thought that was really cool to kind of build more on that story, because in the original, you get a sense that, Shinra is obviously the bad guys, but you don't get a full sense of the impact until it comes closer to like concluding Baird's story, I felt.
And Jesse mentions to Cloud, like as he's walking in, it's almost like not a speech bubble, but she's saying it to him like, oh, and please do this for me because I don't know if I can handle it. Like we're starting to realize too, she says she hasn't been home for a while, once in a blue moon, and she doesn't want to go in her dad's room. So she can't fully accept this, or she can't deal with her dad being sick. So she avoids her parents, we find out basically, for most of the time. And she can't do this also.
And they think that she's an actress.
She lies about that too.
Yeah, she lies about what she actually does. They think she's an actress at a theater company. And in the room, you actually see like tickets, right? For one, I guess she was earlier on because she was actually an actress. So when she kind of had that big break of hers. So for me, this was really cool because, again, we mentioned before, we didn't really get a good sense of like these characters, but now the remake is giving us a full glimpse of Jesse's world.
Jesse's world, nice. Now I feel bad because my whole notes in this was how creepy it was. You're stealing her dad's car to break into Shinra while he's literally sick. And now that you mention this, I feel bad because it's like, okay, wow, yeah, you know what? There was like some great backstory. This is a little touching. We get to see a little bit about Jesse's story. But when I was playing, I thought it was just creepy as hell. And she was an asshole for all this because one, she can't see her dad. And two, she's trying to steal from him. So, and he can't defend himself. So great. So what if he gets in trouble? Like, he's already sick.
Well, that's the thing I was thinking. I'm like, the whole issue is because Johnny, I guess their contact to get in for their next mission was Johnny, but then he gets captured and all this, it kind of throws it a little bit south, right? So that's why she has to go to plan B in a sense and get the card from her dad. But then my thing is, won't Shinra, like, you're using an ID card. Like, as soon as you swipe that, they're going to know who it's from. It's not a fake one. It's a completely real one. Won't they go after her parents? So you don't get a sense that Jesse's concerned about that risk. If there is a risk, maybe I'm looking too much into it. But that's, after this part, I was kind of like, did she just throw her parents under the
100%.
bus? Like, what?
When I was confused about this. We also maybe spent way too much time dissecting this. Because we are nerds and we don't understand exactly what's going on with Jesse, but it's okay. Maybe she's just going through things, okay? She's just finding herself, all right? That's it. We basically finally take Jesse's dad's Shinra card. We steal it, of course, and we get into the Shinra building. This is where it gets a little confusing here for me. This whole mission is just strange to me, but we see that there's somebody who has already been at the compound, but we're not really sure who it is. And then also Cloud has a flashback of Tifa.
Heya. So, What did you want to talk about?
When spring comes, I'm leaving town. I'm going to Midgar.
Should have figured. All the guys are leaving.
But I'm not like them. I'm not going just to look for work. I'm going to be a soldier. The best of the best. Like Sephiroth.
The great war hero, huh? Isn't it pretty hard to become a soldier?
Yeah. So I won't be back for a long time.
Guess not. Think you'll be in the papers?
I'll try.
Just promise me one thing. When we're older, and you're a famous soldier, if I'm ever trapped or in trouble, promise you'll come and save me.
Huh?
That's what heroes do. They save people. Please? Just once. Come on, promise me.
Fine. I promise.
We get to learn a lot about Cloud in this one where, you know, he talks about wanting to be a soldier, wanting to be like Sephiroth. So we do know that Sephiroth was a war hero before he turned bad. And also Cloud mentioned earlier in the game that he killed Sephiroth. So we're not really sure what's going on there. But you can see the relationship with Tifa and Cloud. But I just wasn't sure why this scene took place at this current moment rather than when we had all those discussions with Tifa already. Why didn't they just plop that in there?
Yeah, I completely agree with you because the transition, like there's nothing, I guess they tried to make it seem like it was natural through this transition, and maybe because it comes like, oh, now I'm changing my mind because at first I was like, yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, I think when Tifa's like at the end of all the mini missions they do in the slums, when Tifa's like, what's really going on? What happened to you? And maybe Cloud, if they're outside, right, where their rooms are, Cloud looks up at the sky. They have this flashback kind of thing. And then they go into the conversation. That makes sense. But maybe what the devs are trying to do here is they're trying to show that Cloud is, his mental state is kind of all over the place. Like he's dealing with trauma with flashbacks. It doesn't make sense. They happen frequently at all certain times. And like this, like he's going through some emotional trauma that's having him think back to his friendships, like the people he associated with. And it's something that he's always dealing with.
Wow. Okay. You know what? I'm on board after that because he does mention after this scene, he kind of whispers to himself. He's like, "Oh wow, I remember like her feeling that she said that she feels trapped." So again, he's also these two chapters specifically, we start to really get a sense of who Cloud is, and that he's starting to feel bad for maybe some of his actions that he's done throughout the years that has led him to this point, and now he feels bad for Tifa, where before I don't think he really did. But I don't get the placement of it. I get that makes more sense the way you say it, but we're in the thick of like breaking into somewhere with other people that aren't Tifa. Maybe throw in something else or a different flashback, but it shows to me that Cloud maybe does have a heart of gold because he did all of this to join and become a soldier to kind of make a name for himself, but also protect his loved ones.
Well, and maybe that struggle is coming from the fact that maybe he wishes he didn't go.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because why flash back to like that moment when he says he's leaving to become a soldier, right? Maybe that was a point where he feels like he could have changed his life.
This is getting meta. All right.
I know why do we always get so deep on this podcast?
Okay. We clear mobs. We help Wedge get avoid getting bit in the ass by dogs. I wanted to ask you who you like better, Wedge or Biggs, because Wedge is really cool. He's my favorite.
Yeah, like I think I like them both for different reasons. Wedge is like the comedic relief, right? Yeah. He's funny. He doesn't always say the right thing, but Biggs is kind of hot.
Oh my God, Camille.
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. There are these 3D generated characters are pretty hot. Okay. Most of these characters are pretty hot.
Why is everyone so attractive in this game? It doesn't make sense. But he's kind of like that cool guy, you know?
Yeah.
That I think personally he has a thing for Jesse, but whatever.
I just wanted to mention that Wedge, I noticed, is the voice actor is one of the best friends of Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad.
Oh.
He has those two friends, and the tall one, if you remember, his voice is very raspy, just like this guy. And so I knew right off the bat, and I searched up, and it was him. So I'm proud of myself.
Interesting.
Before we get too much off topic, right after all this fighting, we meet a familiar foe.
You know what I want. A second dance. Just the two of us. You turned the key. The engine roars with excitement. It hungers to be set free!
Fall back. Right. Come on.
It's been a long time since I fought a duel out of the saddle. But for all the miles on the clock, I'm just as fast as I ever was.
All right, gotta mention this, and I noticed this right off the bat, but why are there so many characters who are sexually aroused by fighting?
I don't know.
Like, you could tell he's like, oh yeah, time to fight.
Yeah. I don't know, but his hair is something. He's a character.
Yes.
He's just maybe, I think, you know what it is? He's really just aroused by himself. Like, he just is like, look at my hair, look at my sword. I look amazing and everything, because I'm just amazed and turned on by myself. Everything turns me on. So that's Roche's problem.
For me, I thought it was like, he just loves battling, and he sees this other attractive guy that he's like also hot and just like Roche. And
also, maybe it has to do with the fact that he's a soldier as well, right? So maybe the fact that he gets to go against another soldier is what's appealing to him.
Okay, that makes sense. So we have to fight him again for the second time. That's great. And his weakness, I had to mention to you, is fire. When I went through this fight, he kind of is on Cloud's level in terms of sword fighting. So it's hard to get attacks on him because he normally parries or blocks it. You have to use Punisher mode as much as possible, but his weakness is fire. So if you have fire magic, that is your way to get him staggered. So I'm sure you had an easy time with this fight.
Yeah, definitely. It was my fire magic and also my summon. I think that helped me get through this fight. I did die once, though. I wasn't paying attention, and I wasn't really paying attention to what his weaknesses were. So I was just kind of doing my own thing, and I died. But I learned my lesson, came back, and I pummeled him to the ground.
I noticed with this game, too, you can't get by with just spamming things. There's a method to the madness, and you actually have to pay attention to the battle system, because there are some fights that if you just want to attack with melee, you can't do it. It's impossible. And this is one of those fights where you have to think what you're going through, which I like. I like that there is a little bit of nuance to these fights.
Yeah, it makes a boss fight more interesting when you actually have to think.
I have to mention this because we don't see him again, so I'm going to mention this now. But it's weird that we had so much story with Roche, and once we beat him a second time, we actually never see him for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why implant this character here? That's why this mission specifically to me is really just, I have the filler blinkers on. The red lights are flashing because I really felt a sense of, I don't really know what's going on in this mission. And there are characters that I never see again. So it's like, they wanted to beef up this game, so they added this mission here, but I really didn't think it had any purpose.
Well, and I think that's the hard thing when you're dealing with a game that's a remake, but it's kind of torn apart into these different chapters, right, of the remake. So we don't even know if this character does serve a higher purpose in the overall plot of the game, because we don't have the other parts of the game.
Yes, and who knows when they come out, right? When I started playing this game, I didn't realize that it was only the first part of the game. So as I'm getting through, I'm like, this is only a quarter of this, or like not even a quarter, a pinch. So I'm like, okay. And do they have any plans to make more of these? They do, but
No
when
release
are those
dates,
going to come out?
yeah.
Because this took like 10 years, right?
Yeah, no release dates. I'm hoping it doesn't take that long, but definitely, you know, that's something we're going to have to talk about, how we feel at the end of this whole series.
Roche drives off in the sunset, laughing maniacally as he goes.
That's such a cliche.
Jesse gets what she needs. Wedge gets a bullet in the ass, or he gets bit in the ass, which was hilarious. I don't really know what's going on here. They then find parachutes that were apparently implanted there by her dad, and they ride off into the sunset, back into the Sector 7 slums on parachutes with like 80s music blasting. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, it's full JRPG. Just put it in. We don't care. We like this stuff. But you know what? I have to say, with this whole parachuting, you know, leaving Sector 7 and going back to the slums, I actually did like getting that overall look of where the slums is in relations to everything else.
That's true.
So that was really cool to see the 80s, you know, vibes. Sure, if they want to do that.
It's like walking off in explosions in the background.
Yeah.
You're slowly walking as everything explodes behind
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
We're not done in this mission. This mission keeps going. I thought it maybe should have ended there, but it doesn't as we get back to Sector 7.
Cloud?
Yeah,
You were out for a while.
just walking.
I ran into Johnny, by the way. Said not to worry. He was getting out of town.
Oh, that guy.
You weren't thinking of leaving Midgar anytime soon, were you?
Well, seems this old friend of mine's in a tight spot. Long time ago, I said I'd be there for her. Made a promise. So,
Can't say this is quite what I had in mind when I put that on you way back when.
if you want to talk, I'm listening.
Huh? What's with you all of a sudden?
With me?
Like you're losing that hard edge.
That bad?
Not at all. I like it. Maybe Marlene won't be so scared of you next time. I'm really glad to have you back, Cloud. Really glad. It's pretty late, huh? I'd like to catch up more, but we should probably both get some sleep, yeah?
Yeah.
Good night, then.
Good night, Tifa.
Like, at what point did Cloud start becoming soft? Was it this mission with Jesse? Did he start to realize something as he went to get him? Like, now he wants to talk to Tifa, and he almost like loves her, regardless if it's romantic or not. Is like there to protect her and is now willing to talk to her. The growth from chapter 2 to chapter 4 is already immense with Cloud.
It seems rapid, right?
Yeah.
Well, I do feel like when we first see Tifa, you realize that he's a little bit more comfortable with her. And I think when they had the discussion of what happened, that's when we really see him starting to open up, and he kind of lets his guard down a little bit, especially around Tifa. So this is the Cloud I like. This is the Cloud where he doesn't seem so one-dimensional like a jerk, or like he's just moping all the time. He seems like a real person that may be struggling with post-traumatic stress. Like there may be something happening there. It gives him more dimensions, and I feel better now with how he actually interacts with Tifa. Like he's not just taking advantage of her. So
Everything's not over yet, though. You don't get a false sense of security here, my friends, because in the morning you wake up and there are more Santimenters. They show up all over the slums. Everybody can see them. You have to team up with Tifa to fight them. Again here, Camille, with the right thing to do, use magic. Magic is the most effective against what we call the enigmatic specters. No, they're specters. I can't say the word. Can you say it?
enigmatic specters.
Yes, I don't know what they are, but we'll just call them specters. But you need magic to defeat them because the melee weapons don't do too much damage.
Yeah, and they are literally everywhere, like flooding the screen. And there's that one main specter that you kind of have to focus your attacks on to kind of get rid of them, which is really interesting. But also, like, I don't understand why everyone could see them, because with Aerith, no one could see them but Aaron.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and there's kind of like these whisperings up at this point. You hear like rumors that there may be a lab under the slums or something like that. So I'm thinking maybe it's all connected.
Ghosts?
They're ghosts.
Well, what I find strange about this is once you defeat them all and everyone is safe, it's like they don't mention it again. They all went through the same problems, but it's like, okay, let's just move on. But it's like, you guys were just attacked by these weird ghost things. Does nobody really want to talk about it?
Especially because Cloud does mention this earlier in the game when he first reaches the slums. Cloud mentions that there's these invisible enemies, and Barrett kind of laughs at him. So it's interesting that this kind of makes sense, like to what Cloud was saying, and no one acknowledges. They're like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Sure, Cloud. Maybe I understand why Cloud kind of hates the world because no one listens to him.
Oh, all right. So we finally walk over to the train station. We buy Barrett's theme music. Make sure to do that. We hop on board a train with Tifa and Barrett to start our new operation. Finally, this chapter ends. So now we can digest it. Now we can think about it. And we'll come back and talk about it more on AutoSave.
Well, if it isn't Cloud Strife, was wondering when you'd show up. Without further ado, here you are. Thanks for stepping up, Merc. And now for the cherry on top.
Okay, I get it. Mind letting me breathe?
Depends. Mind coming over tomorrow night? My roommates should all be out for a while.
Are you seriously that desperate? Just let go already.
Only if you promise to come back tomorrow night. Deal?
Welcome back to AutoSave, and I saved this specifically for this segment so we can really highlight it. But Camille, this was a hilarious interaction, especially when Cloud calls Jesse desperate.
What a jerk. Are you that desperate? I get it already. Like, he acts like he doesn't have big muscles to kind of push her off. Cloud likes the attention, okay? Cloud likes the attention.
So. Yeah.
Because he would have just been like, yeah, not interested. You know, like, I could completely see Cloud saying something that like that or more offensive to turn a girl down. So, you know, he's still keeping all of his options open, it seems like.
He's just playing hard to get, basically, because again, he's just like, he's not saying no, but he's being a jerk about it. But Jesse coming on strong, saying, you know, my roommates aren't going to be home. Whoa, okay.
Whoa, yeah, and the thing is, where Jesse stays in the slums, it's only women that could stay in that house because it's like a theater company or whatever, right? So it's interesting that that like she's just breaking all the rules for Cloud. But what did you choose? Did you choose like no promises? Because you have that choice, that option at the end. Are you going to come back tomorrow night? Did you choose no promises, not happening?
I thought no promises because I didn't want to say not happening because I wanted to see where this went. I knew that both of them were kind of like, okay, we're probably not going to get more and more of this.
Not going to,
But I was like, okay, this one seems a little bit more promising, so I could leave it open-ended with Jesse.
I know. See, are we as bad as Cloud is because we're also leaving all of our options open?
We want it to happen.
With everybody.
I wanted to mention a few things before the end of this episode. The music. When we get to the slums, we hear the Final Fantasy VII main theme, which is the do, 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 do. And that to me is my favorite theme. Yeah. Even though it's in the original game, it's the outer worldly theme. I thought it had its place here, and I felt really nostalgic at that point.
Yeah, I completely agree. Oh my God, that theme is amazing.
One of the best.
Oh, so good. The music, like we talked about the Chocobo song.
Yes.
Too, right? Like I all these little add-ins are what I love about the Final Fantasy franchise. Just because it really just caters to like what you love as a gamer, or if you don't love that theme, we'll put on another theme. Yeah, I love that. The dark game, like all these little small features features that seem small, just add more charm.
And Square Enix does such a great job with music in general. They always have.
Yeah. Well, even like music, but even like their mini missions or like side games, like cooking.
Yeah.
You know, finding a new recipe in Final Fantasy 15, right? Like I just love that cutscene. I could watch that cutscene over and over again. Oh, a new recipe. You know? Like,
but yeah, they're not afraid
so
to throw these things in there. I like it. Did you buy the Iron Blade was my question. Did you equip it?
Yes, I did, but I felt dirty doing it. It wasn't the Buster Sword. Like I felt really dirty doing it. I equipped it and then I was like, why am I leveling up this weapon? It's not his signature weapon. Like, this is bad.
I didn't buy it because I didn't have enough money at the time, and then I forgot about it. But I actually used the Buster Sword for most of the game because I didn't know where to find any other weapons. So I wasn't sure if like I needed to have the Buster Sword the whole time. Because normally in Final Fantasy games, you can always get up to like the Ultima weapon. You can get like these amazing swords. And so I was confused. And there aren't that many options in this game in terms of weapons. So it took me a long time, I think probably near the end of the game, when I actually changed my weapons. But I used the Buster Sword throughout. So I was like, am I not doing enough damage because this isn't good enough? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's like the struggle, right? Because usually with JRPGs, you try to put yourself in the character's shoes. And then it's like, but you have all these different options. Which one do you choose? I mean, Nick, it's not a bad thing just to ignore the options and go with the character signature.
Yeah, it looks pretty badass, right?
It's less confusing. Yeah, it does look badass too. Yeah, it looks badass.
Summons. That's what I wanted to talk about before. I teased it into this one, but I wanted to mention I'm kind of disappointed by it because when you can use a summon, it's enjoyable. I like the features of it in terms of you having to drive up your ATP gauge in order to use some of their moves. But what I didn't like about this is that you can't use the summons as often. I felt like it was only situational. And that's kind of, I remember it was, I think, Final Fantasy 13, which you could only use summons in situational needs. But I like, especially in the original game, I think that's one thing they didn't have to change was you can use summons anytime the gauge goes up. And I thought they missed out on that. I didn't like that it was only situational.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Summons are so cool. You want to use them all the time, which is surprising because you're not a magic guy, right? Like you usually don't do that. But when it comes to summons, I feel like everybody loves summons. So I see that.
The other thing is I felt like these missions were filler. Lots of filler. And it's not that it wasn't that enjoyable, but I felt it just was a little repetitive and I think they could have chopped a little bit of the fat.
Maybe the length of these missions, you know, the fat. I do feel like it wasn't all filler though. I did want to see where, you know, Shinra employees live, kind of get a glimpse of that world, how different it is from the slums to build like this villain that is going to be Shinra, right? I liked getting a better understanding of Jessie because if we didn't have that mission, Jessie still could have been seen as a throwaway character. Like I know we get the dimensions that we talked about in episode 1 of the, you know, this saga, but I feel like it just makes them seem more real and like they have something at stake as well. And in the original, we get that sense too, but mostly from Barrett, not from the other characters.
That's a good point. It really helps in flushing out all the characters so you get a sense of everybody. Like before, Biggs and Wedge, they don't get their time in the sun. So it's nice to see. So you know what? I'll agree with you now. I'll change my opinion on it.
Did you like the whole conversation seeing Tifa and Cloud as kids?
Yeah. Listen, I love backstory. I love flashbacks. I love getting to know more about the main characters.
Yeah, I would actually say these missions were more crucial because I feel like it's starting to pick up, you know, and it does pick up. So we wouldn't have been able to establish fully Cloud's more human side, like how real he feels, how his guard is let down. I feel like if that happened later on, it would have seemed too abrupt for it to happen then.
I'll change my opinion again. I think it's good that we got to know a little bit more about Cloud in the beginning. But we turn to our theme, Mercenary for Hire, where the shady character starts to get caught up in the plot and his feelings and other characters. And I guess we can see, obviously, we just talked about it, but Cloud is now softening up. And he's not only just a merc for hire, but he's helping Avalanche with their cause. Pretty much pro bono.
Yeah, he's definitely like those heroes that we talked about, Aladdin. You could see that this is kind of like the tipping point for him where he's getting more involved in who Avalanche is, not just as an employer for him, but as people.
And the main thing for me is he's less brooding. He's not using his grunts as much, and he's actually talking to people and having real conversations. So you know that there is character growth there. The last thing I want to mention before we get going is, Camille, why is Cloud's sword so big in this episode?
Yes, it is too big. And I mentioned one reason previously in our other episode. This time around, we saw Cloud get really close to a few ladies in this game. Jessie like pretty much hugs Cloud, trying to go in for, the big smoocheroo. The sword will get in the way. Poor Jessie's hand. Like, imagine if she had like bracelets. That's all going to get messed up as she puts her hands around Cloud by the sword.
Yeah.
It's just not a good idea if you are coming close with the ladies and you want better chances. Don't have a big sword like Cloud. That's all I'm saying.
And for what's up on the next episode.
You have to get out of here.
What are you doing?
Trying to keep you alive.
But I work for Shinra. I'm the enemy.
I don't care. I don't want anyone to die. Please.
We might be getting into some trouble. Not us, not me and Camille, but Avalanche. Okay? Avalanche will get into some trouble on AutoSave.
AutoSave is produced and hosted by Camille Salazar-Hadaway and myself, Nick Andrade. The show is also produced by Dylan Wilson. Gameplay and additional elements provided by Chris Seitzer. Executive producer, Clayton Hansler. You can follow the show at AutoSave Podcast on Twitter and AutoSave Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. You can subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to it right now, and if it happens to be Apple Podcasts, kindly leave us a rating and review, but only if it's good. AutoSave is a Soda original, hosted on the Soda Podcast Network.
Nice, Jessie. Nice.